Champions League dreams to bench-warming disasters, these transfers were supposed to save their clubs. Instead, they flopped badly. Let's break down the most pointless transfers of the 2024-25 season, and trust me, some of these will surprise you. This past winter, Aston Villa was the most active club in the transfer market, both in terms of signings and departures. The biggest transformation took place up front. Under Unai Emery, players like Marco Asensio and Marcus Rashford joined the squad, and Donyell Malen finally left Borussia Dortmund. The Dutch winger had mentally checked out of the club long ago, but can the move from Dortmund to Villa really be called an upgrade? Even considering Dortmund's ongoing struggles, it's debatable. While Asensio and Rashford have successfully revitalized their careers at Villa Park, Rashford already notched 4 goals and 6 assists in the Premier League since January, Donyell has mostly been stuck on the bench, which makes his transfer useless to say the least. Reportedly, he was extremely disappointed to be left out of Villa's Champions League squad, with Emery opting for Rashford instead. The club signed 5 players in January, but UEFA rules allowed only 3 new registrations for the knockout stage. So far in the Premier League, Donyell has made just 6 appearances totaling 142 minutes, failing to make a meaningful impact. For the Dutchman, the switch from Dortmund to Villa seems like a pointless mystery, much like several other transfers on my list of the most inexplicable moves of the season. One of those is Raheem Sterling. From a financial standpoint, Arsenal barely spent anything on him. Chelsea still cover most of his wages, but the loan hasn't brought the Gunners much value either. Sterling has already picked up an injury this season, and across all competitions, hasn't even reached 1,000 minutes of playtime. Mikel Arteta uses Sterling only as a last-minute backup when a starter goes down. At this point, he's not even a reliable bench option. Sterling didn't turn out to be an upgraded version of Rice Nelson, let alone a dependable backup for Bukayo Saka. His contract with Chelsea runs until 2027, but if Enzo Maresca stays, Sterling's chances of reviving his career at Stamford Bridge are non-existent. Even if Todd Boehly decides to start another round of experimental signings, it's unlikely that Sterling will remain at Chelsea. In his current form, no Premier League club seems to need Raheem Sterling. He became a star early and peaked just as early. He turned 30 just a few months ago, and while that's too young to retire, his options are dwindling. The most realistic paths ahead for him, a move to Serie A or a final payday in Saudi Arabia. Another head-scratching transfer this season was Federico Chiesa to Liverpool. Despite the modest £10 million fee, many expected him to be a solid squad option, but in over 400 minutes across all competitions, Chiesa managed just 2 goals and 2 assists, mostly in low-stakes games, with the exception of 1 decent performance against Newcastle. There's a growing belief among fans that Liverpool's management never consulted Arne Slot on this transfer. That could be part of the reason why the Dutch manager keeps him glued to the bench. Chiesa's work rate and determination are still evident, both on and off the pitch, but Liverpool clearly isn't the right fit for his career revival. A return to Serie A might be the best option, a league and culture where he thrived before. That familiar environment could give him the platform to rebuild what's been lost. Next on the list is Evan Ferguson, once hailed as the Premier League's top wonder kid, but his role at Brighton had been fading year by year. Fewer goals, fewer starts, and less influence. Things hit a low point under Fabian Hürzeler, with whom he never really clicked. In January, Ferguson moved on loan to West Ham, a club in desperate need of attacking firepower. But the move has been a complete failure. Ferguson has yet to score or register an assist, and his minutes have been drastically reduced, even off the bench. At this point, West Ham's transfer strategy should be studied as a masterclass in how not to strengthen your squad. Another curious Aston Villa signing was Ian Maatsen, acquired from Chelsea for £37.5 million. On paper, it looked like a smart, forward-looking transfer, but by May, Matson had played fewer than 600 minutes in the Premier League, losing the starting role to Lucas Digne, who simply refuses to decline with age. Matson has only recently begun getting more sub-appearances, but unless he earns a bigger role by season's end, a loan move in the summer might be necessary. It's baffling. Just a year ago, he was regarded as one of the best left-backs in Europe with a trajectory toward becoming world-class. For now, Villa haven't made the most of his potential. Frankly, Dutch players seem cursed in the Premier League when it comes to picking clubs. Just look at Joshua Xerxi. A cult favorite among tactical analysts, he was signed by Manchester United for €42 million, but it remains unclear why. Under Ruben Amorim, Xerxi scores only on rare occasions. While he does contribute in terms of pressing and link-up play, this isn't what fans expected for that price tag. Meanwhile, Rasmus Højlund is still around, and he's not exactly setting the league on fire either. United have since adopted a cost-cutting strategy and plan to overhaul half the squad under Amorim, but surprisingly, Xerxi may survive the purge. Why? First, fans and management haven't completely lost faith in him yet, and second, Amorim appreciates Xerxi's work rate, enough to offer him a second chance. So, while this transfer looks like another Red Devils flop, there's still hope, or worst case, he could return to Serie A, where he previously impressed. The final loan in this lineup is João Félix, whose career continues to stall. The idea of him joining AC Milan on loan seemed like a fresh start. His playing style matched the club, and to fans he looked like the second coming of Kaká. But just months later, it's clear that this fairy tale never materialized. There's mutual disappointment between Felix and the Rossoneri fanbase. Milan have become the new face of chaos in football, even outdoing Chelsea this season in terms of irrational decision-making. Felix remains a talented footballer, no doubt, but unless he finds a club that can ignite his motivation past the first 2 months, he'll remain a frustrating what-if story. One more Portuguese player named João, but this time, João Palhinha. The defensive midfielder finally joined Bayern Munich from Fulham for 50 million euros, but the transfer was odd from the start. He arrived under a manager who didn't want him, while the coach who did, Thomas Tuchel, was already gone by the time Palhinha signed. Back in summer 2023, the deal almost happened. Palhinha flew to Munich, passed his medical, posed in a Bayern shirt for socials, only for Fulham to block the move last minute, unable to find a replacement. A year later, Bayern finally completed the transfer, but the context had changed entirely. Palhinha even thanked Tuchel during his unveiling, not realizing Tuchel had already been sacked. Bayern's plan was to pair him with Aleksandar Pavlovic, as they moved on from Leon Goretzka and prepared for a future without Joshua Kimmich. But in reality, Palhinha hasn't earned a consistent starting role. At this point, it's fair to say he's not yet ready to anchor a midfield at this level, and his transfer is shaping up to be one of the most pointless deals of the season. At the top of the flop list is Douglas Luiz, whose move to Juventus has gone from dream signing to total disaster. When Juve secured him for 50 million euros, many hailed it as a bargain. A midfield star from the Premier League for half his rumored value, it looked like a masterstroke. But fast forward to May 2025, and it's clear, Aston Villa may have sold a broken product. Luiz has now suffered his 4th injury of the season, missing large stretches of the campaign. Earlier in the year, he pulled up during warm-ups, and when he is featured, it's mostly been for conceding clumsy penalties and looking off the pace. Things didn't get better under Thiago Motta, who was sacked in April after Juve's form collapsed in the second half of the season. Now with Igor Tudor at the helm, there's still no real role for Douglas Luiz, especially in Tudor's more vertical and physically demanding system. And that's the issue. Luiz just hasn't been physically available long enough to be useful. He's played only 11 games in all competitions, rarely completing 90 minutes, and Juventus's midfield still looks lost without a consistent anchor. This transfer, once considered one of Juve's smartest in years, is now being called one of the club's worst signings of the modern era. On paper, he was supposed to be the technical heartbeat of a new-look midfield. In reality, he's been a non-factor. There are whispers he could be loaned out or sold back to the Premier League this summer, but with his current injury record, it's hard to see many takers unless he takes a big pay cut. At 27, it's not too late for Douglas Luiz to recover, but if something doesn't change soon, this could be the beginning of the end. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. I highly recommend checking out some of my other videos, such as Manchester United players who revived their careers after leaving, and 8 forgotten Premier League legends, as shown on your screen. My name is Ole. Love this game. See you next time.